hearing right now, but it sounds like some large equipment. Hopefully this isn't too distracting. So, hey guys, this will probably be a little bit of a different video than normal, but I'm kind of going to talk quite a bit in this video, maybe a rant or vent a little bit. So this might not be the video for everybody, but if you're someone that heats with propane, or someone that's looking at switching from heating with propane full-time to wood heat, this might give you some things to potentially think about, maybe some things to look out for, or maybe just kind of get the wheels turning a little bit here. But give you guys a little backstory here. We moved into our place somewhere back in 2010. Propane was the primary heating source in this house. It also heats our water heater. I do kind of wish it heated our stove in the kitchen, just mostly for canning season stuff. The glass top's okay, but I definitely think using propane would be a better option. But I kind of don't think that at the same time, and maybe you'll hear a little of the backstory here, you'll understand. So me and my wife grew up around wood stoves, just love wood heat, the independence of it, just the mesmerization of watching the flame dance, and just how wood heat just warms you to the bones. You know, it's just such a fantastic heat. So we knew right away we wanted to get something in place, and it was kind of out of our league. So we saved every penny and dime. We worked a lot of odd-end jobs, and every couple weeks we'd go down to the store and we'd pick up another piece of the chimney. And we'd slowly start accumulating. Every 2 weeks, pick up another piece, until we finally had that. And at that time, spring was rolling around and stoves were going on sale. We bought kind of a cheaper model stove that we knew would at least meet our minimum requirements. And I'm really glad we did. I mean, it's not the best stove out there, but I'll tell you, that stove paid for itself really quick and has put us on the track of being able to upgrade down the road here a whole lot easier. It was a big stretch for us to get this wood stove into place, but I mean, it's something that kind of got in motion and it just continues to work for us. So I think it was one of our best decisions. So we didn't really take wood heat very seriously. 2014 rolled around and temperatures really plummeted. I think we were in the sub-degree temps for almost like 2 months straight, and propane prices were on a rise. And I think they were having a hard time getting propane out of the ground. And generally in the fall time, you can fill up propane tank about 89 cents to about $1.25 per gallon. We have a 500-gallon tank, so just say you fill it up at a dollar, just say $500 to fill the tank up. And generally we would use about 1,000 to 1,200 gallons per winter. So if you were filling up at a dollar, you know, that's 1,200 bucks. And a lot of times we'd fill up a second time in January, as you know, the heating season went going and the prices started going up, and usually they'd get up to about $2.35, something around that ballpark on average. So usually the first one was a lot cheaper than the second one filling up. Well, 2014 rolled around with those cold temperatures. Prices went up to about $5 a gallon for that second filling. And of course you can pre-buy your propane. It was just something we didn't really do very often. And I mean, $5 a gallon, it adds up fast. Instead of it being, you know, $1,200 or whatever for that winter, now you're talking $2,000 to $2,500 just for one 500-gallon tank fill. And I know there's a lot of farmers around here that got hit really hard, you know, trying to dry their crops, corn, soybeans, whatever they were growing, and using propane heat to dry that stuff. I also know a lot of people that board horses, and they have several of these large barns that they have to keep heated all winter long, and oh, did they get raked over the coals because of those prices. So of course there was a lot of conversation going on around that time, and who are you getting propane from, what are you paying per gallon, blah blah blah. So I got on the phone at that time. I called around to a bunch of the propane companies. I said, what's your going rate? And I called up our company and I said, hey, what's your going rate? And they came in about 10 to 15 cents higher. And a lot of times the company we worked with has generally been lower. And so I kind of tried to do a little wheeling and dealing. It's pretty difficult to be able to switch your propane provider if you lease a tank in the middle of the winter. A lot of times you kind of got to do that in the off season. They ended up matching the price of the others. However, I was a little disappointed when we finally got the bill, because now we suddenly had this additional fee on our bill. It was this trucking fee, something that hadn't been on any of our bills prior and hasn't been on any of the bills since then. But going back and looking, just that one bill had this trucking fee added on. And guess what it was? It was the exact same amount as whatever the additional 10 to 15 cents at however many gallons we filled up at. So all they did was just create another line item in there and just tack the additional cost into that department. So I'm a pretty level-headed guy. However, I have a hard time when I feel like I'm trapped, or I feel like I'm being manipulated, or I don't know. Like I feel like I'm a caged animal sometimes, and I just want to bite back, you know. I think that's built into a lot of us. So that winter, I said, no more are we heating the house with propane at all. And since then, that's exactly what we've done. I think we've turned our furnace on 1 or 2 times, or I think the furnace is run 1 or 2 times. A lot of times we'll flip the furnace on, set it at 55 degrees, so if we go somewhere, get stranded, whatever, can't get home to load up the stove, we're not going to at least come home to frozen pipes. And there's been many winters we've even forgotten about it, and then a lot of times around Easter we'll go down and visit my parents, and then we'll flip the furnace on just to make sure it's actually running. And there's been many times we've come to realize that we hadn't even turned the furnace on, and here the winter was pretty much over. So I think there was even one video I made and that happened to us. Anyways, so I kind of made a dedication that I refused to get propane again. It was kind of my way of biting back, or fighting my way back a little bit. However, we still have a water heater that runs off of propane, and I've been kind of going back and forth the last couple of years. How do I get rid of that last little piece? I mean, I can go out and I can purchase my own propane tank, but then you have the cost of that tank. You're talking $1,500 to $3,000. You have the transportation cost, because it's not like something you can just load up into your vehicle and transport. I mean, you look at a truck that's transporting propane, they have to have labels, and there's a whole fiasco they have to go through to make sure they meet the standards. Then there's the whole maintenance side. Generally, you have a regulator that's got to be replaced every 12 to 15 years. The liability, so it could potentially affect insurance. It starts adding up pretty quick. And right now, because we're not meeting the minimum requirements for our tank, because we have a 500-gallon tank, and a lot of propane companies will require you to consume twice as much as whatever your tank size is. So let's say you have a 100-gallon tank. A lot of times you have to purchase 200 gallons of propane from them when you're kind of in that lease thing. Otherwise, they tack on this rental fee. So in our case, we have a 500-gallon tank, and we theoretically are supposed to be purchasing about 1,000 gallons of propane per winter. And I'm not quite sure if this is the same down south, because obviously the consumption, I would assume, is very different down there versus up here. But I'm not really positive on something like that. So maybe this doesn't apply to everybody. I'm not sure. So I've been trying to figure out, how do we get out of this $100 tank rental fee every year? And right now, the furnace is kind of our backup heating source. It's not being used, but the day that it needs to be used, it's probably going to need to be used, and I want to make sure there's something in place. So either A, I can downgrade the size of our tank, that way we still have our propane furnace as a backup. I can switch our water heater to an electric water heater, but electric costs a little bit more, and we do lose power quite often out here. And still, I'd like to have some sort of backup for the furnace. I mean, the furnace really doesn't run, but I want something there in case, I don't, someone can't always be around to light that stove. I mean, we could put in some baseboard heating or something down in the basement near the water pipes. When I look at purchasing a propane tank, the amount of money that goes into it, it would take 10, 15 years, I think, to eventually pay for itself. The nice part is, if we ever did go back to heating with propane, you have the flexibility to do some negotiation with propane companies, because now you're not locked in that lease, and by law, another propane company can't fill another propane company's tank, However, when you're not in one of those lease type situations, a lot of times they'll take care of their customers first before they'll take care of other people. So if there's another shortage year and we went back to ever heating with propane, we could very well be very low on the totem pole and potentially not get filled up in one of those hard times, when you need it. It's not like natural gas. I think here in the U.S., I think, I'm not positive, I think they have laws with natural gas that they can't shut off, even if you don't pay your bill, they can't shut off your heat until the end of the heating season. They can't shut that gas off or whatever. So, but propane, that's a whole nother thing, because they got to come out, truck the stuff. You have to have the money in order to have your tank filled. So I've been trying to figure out how I'm going to battle through, or figure out how to cut that last little cord, that $100 I'm getting nailed every year. And to be honest, we haven't been getting that $100 every year. It's every 2 years when we have to go fill up, and we fill up at the minimum 200 gallons. So I think on average we use about 100 gallons of propane a year to use our water heater. And another option, of course, is to put in a boiler system that will heat the water heater. That's what my uncle does. That's really a nice setup. But boilers are pretty expensive, and I don't know if I want to go that route or not. I think there's a lot of nice features to it. But it's just another big financial thing to get into, getting a wood heat boiler. And not quite sure. Our wood stove currently does have a water heater type setup, but like it sits in our house, so it's not like I want to be running the wood stove in the middle of the summer just so we can have a hot shower and have the house at 100 and something degrees. I don't know. So I've been trying to figure out or battle through that. I wanted to bring up a little bit of this because some people, I know, watch this channel and watch kind of what we do and how, I mean, we don't have to rely on propane, and there's definitely a lot of ups to that side of stuff, but then there's kind of these little things like this every once in a while. It's like, if you find a way to get around some of these hurdles, obviously you can go off grid or maybe even go solar. So right now, I guess that's what we're trying to work our way through, is how do we snip that little last bit. I still feel like a little bit of a caged animal, and I'm trying to figure out how to get out from underneath their thumb. And if you guys have any recommendations, I would love to hear in the comments. I mean, maybe we just go down the like a baseboard heater type thing and keep it down in our room that's got a lot of that water stuff. I'm not sure yet. I know our neighbor here, he's got a very, very old wood stove, and that's kind of what they do, but I don't know how much stuff's up to code. They've been here for, I mean, that house has been here a long time. I don't think insurance companies really come walking through it. And I think one day if we ever decide to sell, I don't want that to be the breaking point, or now we got to fork out a ton of money to do something to bring you up to code because we disconnected all this other stuff here in the past. So anyways, I just wanted to share this stuff with you guys. Hopefully this can help someone out. If you got any recommendations, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Maybe I've overlooked something, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.